Good afternoon to all. It's 2:02 p.m. on Monday, March 8th, 2021. My name is Don Gosney, and I welcome everyone to the meeting of the West Contra Costa Unified Schools Citizens Bond Oversight Committee. Will you all join me in saluting the flag of our nation, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All members of the public are welcome to speak on any issue today that is on the agenda. Please use the tool to raise your hand and I will call on you at the appropriate time. We also offer an opportunity under public forum to speak on any issue under the control of the CBOC that is not on the agenda. We request public comments be limited to no more than 3 minutes. Under public comment, with limited exceptions, the CBOC is not allowed to reply to comments or questions. Because this is an online meeting, I ask if anyone other than staff wants to speak, they use the raise your hand feature and wait to be called on. Please do not talk over each other. Remember to unmute yourself when you want to speak and then mute yourself when you're done. Just a reminder to please silence all phones not being used for this meeting. This meeting is being recorded, so please don't forget to smile so everyone can see how happy you are to be here. Okay. Mr. Secretary, can you have the roll call, please? Unmute yourself first, though.
Always comes up that way. Guadalupe Ilana.
Here.
Don Gosney.
And I'm here.
Maisha Cole. John Anderson.
Okay. Please take note of the message imparted out near the beginning of this packet. What?
I wasn't called.
You're not a member.
Oh, okay, fine.
Yeah. You
I
done
did-
turned out
Yeah,
with everybody else. All right. Please take note of the message imparted near the beginning of this packet where I point out that the CBOC is now out of compliance with Prop 39 and that we are absent some of the Prop 39 required positions. I will go into more detail about that when we discuss the roster, but for right now, I want to say that just to protect ourselves from any claims of impropriety about taking actions without having a quorum of required CBOC members, we will not be taking any votes for the record. Everything will be done by consensus where we just agree to do something. Any issues that require actual action, like accepting the minutes, will have to come back at a later date when we have a full complement of members. That may take a couple of months, but I'd rather err on the side of caution. I frequently joke about how I'm one step away from being sent to Brown Act prison, but this is something unworthy of joking around about. I hope that you all understand and will go along with these precautionary moves. Again, apologize. I've got 3 clipboards, a notepad, computer, and my mug of hot tea. Okay. On the approval of the agenda, it'll become apparent in a little bit. I'm going to move the audit discussions until after the staff reports. So we can get the staff reports done first. That way, if anybody has other plans, we've got to go to another district meeting or something, at least they'll have heard the staff reports. If this is okay with everybody, then we'll just accept the agenda as prepared with that minor change. Okay. Give me a moment to write my notes. Do we have any public comments for items not on the agenda? Anybody? Okay. And why don't we go ahead and move straight into staff reports.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. So moving into staff reports today. So we're just going to give you a quick overview of where we currently are within our projects. Next slide. Okay, as always, we lay these out as design, procurement, or design build projects, and then what's in construction. So again, I'll just give you the highlights. So Riverside site improvements. We're currently under design with our architect, and these are improvements outside of the soil stabilization work These are relocation of the playground items that were on the creek side of the property. So anyways, we're working on play structure design, shelter design for this particular item. Core muscle fall protection. Again, this is still with DSA. We're in back check, but haven't got final approval yet. For Cameron and Collins, these kind of grouped together because they're both critical needs projects. They're assigned to the same architect. And these are both involved around HVAC improvements, replacing the aging heating systems within those sites, as well as some accessibility improvements, which will possibly extend out into power upgrades for the site in order to accommodate additional services. For the Kennedy and Stage projects, while they are in planning, if you will, we do have architects for those underneath the critical needs, but those projects are currently in a holding status, as have been for several months, waiting on the outcome of the facilities master plan and where we're going with Measure R, so that they can be taken into account in the overall scope of where that might go. Shannon Elementary School, this is actually under design, and this is the new multi-purpose room for that campus. Items that are under procurement, we have Hercules Middle High School. Critical needs, this is a new science building. I believe it's 6 classrooms. We're currently, actually we received proposals, and we received 19 proposals actually last week on the 24th of February. I said last week, but on the 24th of February, we're looking to interview next week. It was really surprising to get 19 proposals.
Wow.
Yeah. So Lake Campus Rebuild Project, we are in the RFP process, and those are due to come in by the 12th. I'm sorry, April 9th. I got my notes screwed up here. And then we have the Pinole Valley High project, which is the new fields, and we're looking to go out to bid by the 12th. So we're just wrapping up that package now to get it ready to go out. And then we have the Richmond High AV, which was awarded at the last, will be awarded on the 10th. So we can get that work going. Underneath design build, we have Riverside soil stabilization. We received 90% drawings from our DB entity. We're getting ready to submit to both CGS, which is California Geological Society, and to DSA for that particular project. And then we have Richmond High critical needs, which is under construction, which actually, if we go down to construction projects, Richmond High, this particular one is, we're actually entering the punch list phase tomorrow. We're actually walking that site. Today, they're doing pavement on site, as well as trying to tidy up. There's some labeling, logos going on in the building. So that project's nearing completion. And then we have E-Ray 23, which is just wireless upgrades. You can see the sites. You have Collins, Harding, Madera, Vera Vista, and Olinda, and that's under construction right now.
Louis, before you move on,
Yes.
because we have a new person with an applicant that is joining us today, just want to remind everybody that our meetings, everybody sits at the grown-ups table. If you have any questions or comments, we don't stand on ceremony, just raise your hand and we'll make sure that you get a chance to ask that question. And in particular, I know that we're going to be using a lot of acronyms that you may not know or understand. The only way to know it is to ask the question. So just don't hesitate, okay?
Absolutely. If there's folks out there that have questions, please ask them and we'll try to clarify for you. Next slide.
Louis,
Yes.
I just wanted for the new people to realize that you have your construction going. Then after the construction, the punch list, would you explain the difference between the punch list and the closeout for them?
Well, punch list and closeout, I would say go hand in hand, right? So punch list is actually a formality that's done by the architect underneath on the DB side. The architect, the CM, and the owner, as well as any one of the design professionals, our civil engineer or mechanical engineer, all are responsible to inspect the site to make sure it conforms with the contract documents. And the items that don't conform and are not installed in a professional manner, if you will, are items that are identified on the punch list. The closeout process is a formal process that we go through where the contractor, there's a process for completing the punch list in the closeout phase, and that's wrap up of all the remaining RFIs, change orders, those type of things as we move towards final payment and release of retention.
And the
Thank
other
you.
thing I would just add to that note is part of the closeout involves a series of administrative and financial steps as well. The contractor is one of the entities that makes a project successful. And so there's a lot of additional steps that are required in the closeout and what we would call the financial reconciliation of the project. Management and closure of all of the different contracts associated with the project, submitting final and verified reports and sign-offs to state agencies. So there's a number of critical things that happen after the construction of a project is done, where you may see a project that you go, oh, I drove past Michelle Obama. It's a beautiful site. What do they mean that it's still in closeout? And so it's the administrative and financial reconciliation, just the same as the completion of all of the construction tasks.
And thank you, Melissa, for pointing that out. So Richmond High, next slide. So as you can see, as we move into our punch list and eventually close out on this project, we are standing in the new quad, and very proud of the way this looks. It's a great addition to the campus with the landscaping in and the final pavement going on. It's tucked back in the corner between the softball field and the stadium in the background. This is a nice open addition to the campus. So next slide. You can see on the right hand side, it's just a view. I would imagine this was taken from the elevator tower on the science building and looking out towards the gymnasium. You can just see how spacious that is, where the kids will be able to sit on the seating, the walls around the detention basins. If you're wondering why they look like they're deep basins, we've talked about it before, but those are detention basins. That's where the storm water is actually pumped into. And then it's either will soak into the soil, or it will, from there, after it's filtered, drain out into the city storm system.
Louis,
Yes.
on all these raised areas that you refer to as seating areas, I can't see from this picture, but can I assume that they've all got the little devices on them to keep the skateboarders off?
Well, you can see the reliefs in them. So you kind of look at this like a 6-foot section there, you kind of see the seat relief. Those are actually concrete blocks, if you will. I mean, they're decorative seats. They're individual pieces, but around the wall itself, you can see the kind of the construction joints, which are relieved, which is kind of the skateboard stop deterrent.
Okay, I hope so, because I've seen just so much damage. We all have seen so much damage everywhere with the skateboarders that like at least last until the kids get back in class.
And then this is, as it's titled, this is entryway into the gymnasium. And the gymnasium is actually divided in two. If you look at the picture on the right, you can see that the gym is actually on the right-hand side. And then the locker room is on the left-hand side. Back behind the girls' locker room is the dance room. And then beyond that is the weight room. It's kind of how that breaks up. Next slide. And again, just a photo of the interior. You can see the great finishes, the bleachers. You know, I think we have about 100 available, 150 seating there, and then just the lettering and the locker rooms. It's just a great looking place. Next slide.
Sorry, for the benefit of Joseph, this is an auxiliary gymnasium. This is not the main gymnasium. The main gymnasium has seating for a full-size high school basketball game. This is for things other than big events like that.
Absolutely. Locker room, and the next slide. And then we have our weight room, and our weight room has this nice rolled door. And then you can see on the other photo where it leads out into this open courtyard, where, you know, on nice days, the door can be opened. Activities can actually happen in the courtyard area for additional space for workout and training. Next slide. And this is just our newsletter report that's put together once a month, and it just gives us a status update on construction and where we are. And this is posted on our website for those joining us. And this is the financial report, which just highlights who the contractor is, who the construction management firm is, current schedule. And then we have our financials, which points out our contingencies and our balance. And most recently, this is a project where we've actually returned, took $300,000 out of project contingency, which is project contingency is what we call is owned by the contractor. That's for items that qualify for project contingency items. We moved 200,000 of that into district contingency, and 100,000 was returned to the project bottom line. Moving to financials. Well, why don't we stop there for a minute in case anybody has any questions on Richmond High in general. Seeing no questions, I guess we'll go on to financials.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. We have a series of monthly reports, monthly financial reports. This is the first of our reports, and this represents the entire bond program. So this actually, the information that you see here will take you back to fiscal year 2000, that is. And so this is a summary by school site. You'll see that historical projects have a legacy project title. Current projects will have the asterisks here. And so this is a summary of the financial information. And then there are a series of footnotes which help guide the project financials and give a little bit more information. Because these reports just represent the expenditure of bond funds, you'll see there are footnotes also associated with projects that had supplemental funding also associated with the project that is not reflected in the numbers above. This is the 2016 facilities master plan subset of that report. And so if you're just looking for financial information related to the projects that are part of the 2016 facilities master plan implementation, you'll find them here with some additional details. And as always, footnotes that are help crafted to really ensure that we're providing a comprehensive message. This here is our site budget authorization. Looks very similar to our site budget authorization form. And this identifies, it's essentially in 2 pages, our entire bond program. So if there was a particular school site that you wanted to see, you could look back in time and see what has been expended over the life of the bond program through the last closed fiscal year. And then you can see more specifically what has been expended so far in this current fiscal year. And then the last 3 columns will give you the monthly reconciliation, identifying expenditures, commitments, and remaining budget balance. The footnotes will help to identify if the project is active or if it is closed. And typically our reports run in an order where you see elementary schools first, followed by middle schools, high schools, and then other types of programs. And so moving along, this is what we affectionately call Report 13. So the style of this report here is a cover sheet that essentially identifies in a picture snapshot the cash position for the program. And you can see here, there's a series of footnotes along the right-hand side. And so as you walk through the additional pages of the report, for example, this is note 1, adjusted cash balance. And so this is the information that supports note 1 here on the cover sheet as you're becoming more and more familiar with our reports. So one of the things that has been developed in partnership with the CBOC is what's known as the Report 13 variance. And what's great about this report is it essentially is a monthly snapshot in the activities of the bond program for the last month. And so this identifies essentially the change from the close of January of 21 to February of 21. So what we can see right off the bat is we had a burn rate just short of $1 million last month. And you can also see that we've now booked the second quarter interest. And so you can see here the interest from LAIF, which is an investment we make, and then also the pooled interest earnings. One of the other things that was done this last month was a revision in our projection. So now that we know what we received in the first and second quarter, and those have been booked, we have revised our projection downwards. As many of you probably know, interest rates are historically low. And so what we originally projected we might have in interest earnings is significantly less. And so we've made that adjustment to our projection at this time. And so that's what is reflected here. And then again, you'll see how that carries. And so this report 13 variance, if you travel back to the cover sheet for report 13, you'll notice that the descriptors align. And so you can always go to report 13 to have a comprehensive look and follow up with the notes to see the activities, or you can jump to the variance if you just want to understand the change that took place in the last month. Lastly is our accounts payable checklist. So this is a list of all of the bond funder expenditures as line items for the last month. So in addition to the warrants, that is the checks that are issued with description and detail here, there are other costs. For example, there are retentions as well as payroll for staff that are working on the bond funded projects. And so we actually keep detailed timesheets because we are multi-funded. And so in addition to that, you have the monthly reconciliation of the payroll data against the timesheets to ensure that the payroll expenditures against the bond fund are appropriate and based on work that supports the bond funded projects. And so the last financial report that I'll be sharing with you today, this is our annual KPI, that is our annual Key Performance Indicators report. And this is an annual report that we prepare for the CBOC. And so as opposed to our school district, which runs reports on a fiscal year basis, this is a calendar year annual report that runs through December 31st. And so we had shared this previously, and through some work with Mr. Youngher, understood a little bit more about what he was looking for. And so he was really trying to tie the annual KPI report to the annual variance report, which we shared last month, and making sure that everything lined up. One of the challenges that we face is because we do annual reports on a fiscal year basis. And so one of the things that was discussed was we wanted to make sure, since changes can still be made when a fiscal year is open, like this one is, we wanted to make sure that we had the detailed backup documentation to support this report, because 5 years from now, if somebody was trying to look backwards, we wanted to make sure that they had all of the necessary details that could align these reports together. Typically for us, when you close the fiscal year, you lock that fiscal year in. And so if someone's looking back and they're looking back based on a fiscal year cut, everything's in the books, right? And so one of the things that came up in that meeting, and one of the things that I would ask for the CBOC to potentially consider, is if it was possible to have the annual report follow the fiscal year that the school district does. And it's just a thought. We were doing some brainstorming and some troubleshooting together, and it was an idea that came up. And for us, it's a great idea because it aligns with our own district and how we close our books and align our annual fiscal year reporting. So it's just an idea that I'll pass on to the committee. So looking at the KPI, again, very similar to report 13, think of the first sheet as your cover sheet. This is essentially your executive summary. And then as you walk through the items and you see these subset numbers, there's then subsequent pages of notes that support that information. So as you continue to travel through the report, you can learn more about the different items and the subsequent historical information. Because as shared earlier, the bond program, our fiscal reporting is for the entire bond program under Prop 39, which does take us back to fiscal year 00.
Mhm.
And with that, I conclude my financial reports for this month.
Can we please go back to page 42?
Absolutely.
Just want to point out to everybody, you take a look at that top table, the lower right-hand corner of that top table with the bond payments. And just like you're buying your house and paying a mortgage on it, tremendous amount of what you're paying is in interest. I mean, we've paid only $359 million in principal, but we already paid $542 million in interest. That's considerably more than what we paid in principal. These schools aren't cheap, and they're not free. There's a price to be paid, and that's something anybody who gets to pay their property tax bill by April 10th before the deadline, they'll be looking at that and seeing the 8 different lines on there that say WCCUSD, and this might help us all to keep in mind why there is so much pushback every time a bond measure is proposed, whether it's by the school district or by the city or the county or anything, because they are hefty in price. Thank you. One other item on there before Lorraine, we had asked that a couple of invoices be put on the agenda for review. I just wanted to point out that there was no effort to hide those or anything like that. They just slipped through the cracks, and there wasn't enough time to get the documentation and paperwork prepared before I had to put the agenda together. So we'll make sure that they get put on next month's agenda. Lorraine.
Yes, 2 questions. Melissa, on the key performance indicator summary, is that a legal requirement, or do you just do that for the CBOC?
So we prepare this report for the CBOC to support your annual report.
Wonderful. It's very, very good. Another thing I'd like to point out on the page 42 that's on the monitor now, you notice that there are some bond funds not yet issued. Would you explain about that?
Yes. So 2 pieces. The first is that Measure R, which was approved by the voters in March of 20. We have not done any bond sales, any bond issuance yet. And so that would come at a future time. We're currently working on the final phase of the 2016 Facilities Master Plan implementation, which is funded by the final sale for Measure D 2010 and Measure E 2012. There is also some Measure J dollars that cannot be sold for a number of years. And so based on where we are today, this will identify for you, for example, as I mentioned, for Measure D 2010 and for Measure E 2012, we have done all of the issuances for those measures, and those are the dollars that we have now. And if I could just really, really quickly, because one of the things that I really want to do to try to help all of you be able to tie the reports together is show you that one of the things that's fantastic about Report 13 is it has, as we affectionately call it, like above the line and below the line. And so you'll notice, if you can draw the line here in your mind, future bond sales are listed down here. And so these are items that exist out in future years that haven't happened yet. And so that's not reflected in what is above the line, if that helps.
Great.
So hopefully I answered the question and didn't just create more.
Yeah. Well, the one thing that I wanted to point out is that why haven't we spent the bond funds from D and J? And that has to do with a legal requirement. Am I correct on that?
Yes.
What's that requirement, you know?
So there is the and you know what, I don't want to inappropriately use the words. So what I'll ask is if I can put that in writing and then provide that to Dawn to share to the committee. but we work very closely with our financial advisors to ensure that we're in compliance with the bond language. And part of that has to do with what the tax rate limit is. And so when we can access funds is based on a number of factors. And so I would like to make sure that I provide a comprehensive response. And so maybe what we could also do is provide that in a Friday memo so that it's something that everyone has access to that information and I don't misspeak.
Great, great. And it, from my understanding is like, you can't go over $60 per 100,000. And that's why, like for our 48, we had to get we had to apply to be able to get that at 48 instead of 60. So, maybe if you'll mention that sort of thing in the report.
Yeah,
One,
'cause-
yeah,
go
one
ahead.
final question on the financial. Would you tell us about, you were talking about legacy projects, and the newer members may not understand what that is. Now, our plan started in 2016. That's when they actually put a plan up, but they'd been building schools many years before that. So just to delineate, what is a legacy project as the plan project?
So one of the things that happened was in 2016, there have been a series of plans issued over the years, and part of our responsibility and commitment for the bond program is to really report the program in its totality, right? And so 2016, the board approved an implementation plan that essentially set forth the course for the remaining bond expenditures, basically the remaining bond funds that we had at that time. And so the plan was made based on the available funding. And so one of the things that is a little bit tricky, for example, is Mr. Freeze shared that we're going to be going out to bid for the Panola Valley High School Fields project soon. And that's actually a legacy project because the Panola Valley High School campus replacement project had already begun prior to the 2016 facilities master plan. So 2016 kind of drew a line in the sand and we said, okay, we changed the way that we were reporting things. We changed some of the level of detail of information that we were providing. And so we said, okay, projects that commenced, projects that started prior to 2016 will be called legacy projects, and projects that have started and are part of the 2016 projects that are part of the 2016 facilities master plan were either designated as critical needs projects or as campus replacement projects. And the reason why I kind of flipped through is I want to kind of point you back to our bond program spending to date by site, because you'll notice there's essentially 3 footnotes here, because this is our report where we have our entire program on 2 pages, right? And so footnotes 1 said site projects are completed. Footnote 2 says site legacy projects are under planning, construction, or closeout. So if you look up here under Panola Valley High School, this project is happening now, but this project is not part of the 2016 facilities master plan. It had commenced prior to that. And so that is equally true essentially of Korematsu. And at this point, those are essentially our legacy projects that are in their final phases. The majority of the projects essentially are site 3, right? And so what that means was that legacy projects were completed at that site, but the 2016 facilities master plan projects are under planning, construction, or in closeout. And we actually had a footnote 4 probably about 9 months ago. And what footnote 4 was projects are in future years. But the board approved the budgets for the final implementation phase of the 2016 facilities master plan. So at this time, we don't have a board approved plan for the future dollars. But when we do, footnote 4 will reappear here, and that's how we can help provide essentially sites that are completed, sites that are underway, and then sites that have board-approved projects for the future.
Good. And only two things I'd add is, one is that the plan is updated. Originally, they said every 5 years, and that's why we are now updating it for the R. And also every year in 2018, 19, and 20, there were yearly updates also. And these are all on your website, right?
Yes, so yes, in 2016, the board approved the facilities master plan. And so it's become our practice that every year, typically around May, we produce an annual report, kind of consider it like the state of the bond program or the annual report of the bond program from a staff perspective that really provides where we are in our plan. And provides a number of those details. And we do absolutely keep all of this information on our website so that it's available.
All right. And the other thing is that, let me see, it was about the master plan. Well, I forget what I was going to say, but that's okay. That was great.
And
Lorraine,
one more thing. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Lorraine, Mr. Panis was kindly enough to point out on page 43 of the KPI, footnote 4, you included that in the chat, which speaks directly to the issuance of the $60 cap.
Oh, great.
By those particular bonds, or why the $73 million have not been issued at this point.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I know what I was going to say is about right now we're going through the progress of setting up another plan. And Don is our person on that, representative on that committee, and they go through and they decide what are the key, they know what has to be done. They know what has to be done, but they have to decide which school is going to be done first. And that's what the community gets involved, the staff gets involved, and that's what they're doing now to set up our next plan. Okay, thank you.
Jason, you had your hand up.
Oh, you're muted,
You're
Jason.
muted.
Yeah, there we go. There's always one in every Zoom meeting. I apologize for not asking earlier when the subject of Richmond High School was up, but I was just curious if it was finished on time and on or under budget.
So the question of time, there has been a time extension. It's been granted a no cost time extension on that project. I think we extended the project. It was due in February, so we're just a little over a month past the original contract completion date.
22 days.
Yeah. So, but again, it was a no cost time extension. We granted the contractor for that. Currently, we are under budget in the sense that it is a design build project, right? So there are the original contract amount, and then there's built-in contingency within that contract amount, both project and district contingency, and we are under those numbers.
Great. And what was the reason for the no cost extension?
Mostly had to do with weather. We had some impact in soils in the beginning. There was a 30-day delay on the front end of the contract, getting out of the state architect's office and getting in the ground. So mostly it has to do with around the start of the project and just getting into it at the start of the winter versus getting into it in June and July when we originally had anticipated. October starts always kill you with weather days. And so weather had kind of caught us a little bit.
Thank you.
Well, also, if I may, Jason, if you look on that page that's on the screen now, up underneath the pale blue box, that shows, like they'll say, a critical needs program. Well, that shows you the projects that would go under that. So if you're looking at the pictures throughout the year, you look at that, and you might have to go back through the agenda to see what was being constructed through the different months, but that'll tell you what you have to look to see. That's what they're supposed to be doing on those projects, or the scope of them.
Yep. All right. Thank you.
What Jason is too polite to point out is that any delays on that project had nothing to do with the contractor or the union workers working under the project labor agreement. They were all reasons beyond the control of pretty much anybody.
And I would just add that on top of all that, this is quite the unique year with COVID, and Jason, as you know, COVID has impacted many projects.
Absolutely.
From
That's what I figured you were going to give the reason is that, COVID and job was shut down for a little while or whatever. But weather and rain days and soils problems is not untypical of a project,
Yeah, and I would say that this project, surprisingly enough, had very little COVID impact on it. They were very proactive and were able to move this project right along.
Excellent. That's what I want to hear. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else on the staff reports?
So we did just have a excellent segue from Ms. Humes, and we wanted to give a verbal update on updating the plan, the facilities master plan, from Ms. Mejia Hooper, an update from our facilities committee meeting.
And by all means.
Right. So the facilities committee did meet. And at that facilities committee, we presented the recommendations for the criteria and metrics from the prioritization committee. At that meeting, it was explained that we had a plan process going forward. However, we were directed by the facilities committee chairman to have staff recommend the weighting of the criteria. And so that's what staff is currently working on, is that recommendation. They also went through each one of the criteria individually. And one of the nuances of our facility master plan is that we have 19 school sites that are referred to as our priority sites. And they're ones that either have not had much work in many years or had an architectural project basically held at the beginning of the master plan and not quite completed. And so, but obviously we have a lot more than 19 school sites. So some of the criteria was chosen to be directed towards that 19 school sites. And some of the other criteria that was recommended by the committee, prioritization committee, was designated to be applicable to all 55 sites. So there were some adjustments made, and at the next facilities committee, you'll see the weighting come forward for the proposed criteria. Post that getting hopefully approved, it will move on to the full board for a formal resolution.
As somebody who has been on that prioritization committee, I know that I was led to believe that the committee would be a part of the weighting process on the criteria. And now I understand that the board president has decided on behalf of the board to bypass the committee and have staff do this.
That was the direction we were given. I did ask for clarification to confirm that I understood that process correctly, and that is what was stated. Was that the facility committee preferred that staff complete the weighting process.
Okay, that's good to know. Good. So essentially, we've been fired. No comment. Don't worry about it. I'm not going to put you on the spot. Okay. Anything else for staff?
That concludes staff's presentation for
All
today.
reports.
Thank you very much on that. Then we'll go ahead and go back to page 6 on the agenda itself, where we're going to be addressing items F, G, and H, had to do with the audits. Okay. We were originally scheduled to have phone conversations with Christy White, the bond program's financial auditor, and with Ide Bailey, the bond program's performance auditor. I knew in advance that neither auditor would have any prepared information for us to review prior to our meeting. And I also knew there was a possibility that these meetings might not even occur today. Nonetheless, I needed to include them in the agenda just in case, and also so the CBOC might discuss them and the lack of these meetings and prepared documentation. I learned on Friday evening, after the packet had been posted and sent out, that my fears had come to fruition. We will have no phone conversations today with either auditor. When I learned of this, I emailed Ms. Romo of my concerns about this and commented that my concerns about this that might not be in the right direction for the district. Dr. Wold replied with the following: I can understand your frustrations, but everything that is easy in person takes longer doing it remotely. There was a reason the state and federal government have provided more and more flexibility and fluidity of timelines. This is the natural state we are in right now, and I believe it is a time for tolerance and understanding. These terms do not dismiss accountability, and we plan to bring everything to each of the committees when they are available. I can say that nothing is available as of this moment, and the timing of things will dictate the next steps. If there is a disagreement with any of these decisions or changes in timeliness, you absolutely should express your opinion and concerns. He also requested that I be more professional in my comments and address them to him instead of to the people working for him. He's right, of course, but I still have concerns about how the board policy requires that this be served on the CBOC and the district simultaneously, but we're being told now that all of this must go through the facilities committee first, and they will provide us with what they think we as a CBOC need. I open it up if anybody has any questions or comments on these audits at this point. Before we go into the audit schedules that Anton Younghair has prepared, now is the time to bring up your thoughts and comments. Nobody?
I see Tom has his
Tom
hand raised.
Panis. Tom Panis.
Thank you very much for giving us that summary. It's certainly disappointing to me that the CBOC won't see these reports and the board won't benefit from its thoughts before we do that. And also just like to note on the previous item that I think the staff working with the prioritization committee did a great job. You know, and I spoke to several members of the prioritization committee, and Don, you're not the only person who's disappointed that you're finishing your work before you thought you would be finishing it.
Lorraine and then Sally.
Yes, I'm just talking from the annual report perspective. We had hoped to get all the information in by the 23rd of April. And now with the new schedule, the board is accepting the performance. The financial isn't as difficult as the performance, is accepting the performance on the 31st. The CBOC is on the 14th of April. Is it possible, since the board will get the report the 31st, that we get to see a draft of it so we can work from the draft for our annual report?
The schedule that Ms. Romo put out on Friday night says that the dates are to be determined.
Oh, okay.
So I'm not sure when any of this is going to come out, but if staff has any other information that I don't know about, please share it with us.
What I can say is that the reports will be coming before the board in April. The reports will be submitted to the state the end of March, but they'll be accepted by the board in April.
Okay, Sally. Tom, did you still have your hand up, or
Yes.
okay. Sally?
Okay. So I just want to make sure I understood you correctly, Don, that the facilities committee is going to receive the audits, both the performance and the financial audits, and then decide what part of those audits the CBOC should or needs to have. Is that what you said?
That's what I said, because that's what was explained to me.
They'll be presented to both groups, but they will go to facilities committee prior to coming to the CBOC.
They'll be presented in total to both groups?
Yes. So kind
So
of the
what's-
way that April lines up is the facilities committee is currently scheduled for April 2nd, and the CBOC is scheduled for April 12th. And so the reports need to be submitted by March 31st. And so then they will be presented at both the facilities committee and at CBOC. All essentially facilities related audits will go to facilities committee. All bond audits will come here to the CBOC. And as I understand it, the district-wide financial audit will go to the budget committee. the board's budget committee. And I'm sorry, I don't know the exact date of that, but I do believe the question is about the bond performance and then the bond financial audit. And I know that there are some questions that we need to answer as well. And so absolutely, those would come to this committee in full on April 12th.
And then all three reports will go to the board together.
And which April board is not yet known. And currently there's 2 board meetings in April, the 14th and the 28th. And so they would come to both committees prior to going to the board.
Okay, so there's I think the most important audit that we've always looked at closely in the past, we've looked at both of them, but the most important one is the performance audit of the bond program. So there's no part of that that the facility committee will deem unnecessary for the CBOC to see. Is that correct? It's just the fact that it's either bond or total district audits.
And one of the things,
Big broad brush stroke, not a little brush stroke.
yeah, so you guys will see it.
Mhm.
Performance audit is near and dear to my heart because it's when, I'm providing lots and lots of records. And, one of the things I'm really proud of is this year, part of what they're looking at is they're looking at our bond program management plan. And they're saying, hey, you got
Mhm.
some checklists in here and you got some charts in here and you got some tables. And so show us some additional documents pursuant to the representations of the manual. And, this is really for me how things come together, right? Recommendations, you create procedures, you create checklists and forms to ensure uniform and ongoing implementation of the recommendations. And then the cherry, right, is that annual third party view comes in and says, are you doing the things that you're saying that you're doing? And so it's exciting. This is the chance when we as staff get to show our work, right? Students show it on this sheet of paper, and this is when we get to show our work. So we're looking forward to those coming together, but we are behind schedule this year. Just frankly, typically we've completed records in January and it's just not where we are this year. So they will come in full to the committee and you'll be able to see them, and then they'll go to the board as well.
Okay, so you'll be expected to get a good, strong A+ on your presentation and not necessarily an incomplete. Is that right?
I don't have my report card yet, but I'm really
Okay.
hoping that,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think it's exciting too, Melissa. I know how hard you've worked, so good luck. Yep.
And with all due respect to staff, I'm not going to presume what the facilities committee will allow us to be presented with. I keep in mind, the facilities committee fired the prioritization committee without talking to the board beforehand. So what they're going to do with this, I don't know. Everything is up in the air.
I would encourage everyone to join us at Facilities Committee. The cast and crew, right? You'll see us all there as well. The date for March has changed. And so we're anticipating the Facilities Committee to be March 17th, and we've updated the website to that effect. And so we'd love for you to be able to join us there as well.
Okay. Anything else on staff reports? Or sorry, not staff reports, I'm sorry. We're going to talk, give Anton a chance to present his audit schedules. Although, with all fairness, his schedules came out before somebody pulled out the big eraser and started changing things. Anton, you there?
I'm here, no report.
Okay. But please take a look at the schedule that Anton prepared for us and we put in the agenda. Especially read the really fine print and the footnotes, because there's information on the backup information. Okay. Thank you, Anton, for all your hard work on that. I do appreciate the work that Anton puts in to help me with that. All right, now before we get into we're going to get into the CBOC reports now, which would start off with the consent items. But as I said earlier, because we are not going to take action on anything today, this means that we will not entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the February meeting. I understand, though, that there are some concerns with the content, and even though we won't be taking action, we can still discuss the minutes so that those concerns can be addressed. If there's a consensus for amending the minutes, perhaps when they're brought back for actual approval, those concerns will have been addressed. Anton had discussed with me that he had some proposed amendments. Anton, do you want to touch on those now, or how do you want to handle that?
I did send proposed amendments to all CBOC members, technical corrections. I don't think there's a need at this point to go through them. If the secretary will entertain those changes, perhaps the next version could include those.
Do you have anything from our secretary? John?
Yeah, that's fine. I'll look at them. I haven't seen them. I just saw them late this morning when I got back in
Okay.
from my office.
Okay. Also in the consent items, we've got the member information request log and the approved recommendation log, neither of which have changed from last month. But they're included in there just for informational purposes. Okay.
Don, I have a question. I'm
Yes,
sorry.
Don.
I have my hand up. So I'm not listed on the roster, and I just need to know what my status is at this stage.
You're a concerned citizen.
Okay. And I have put in an application. So where is that application?
We're anticipating taking applications to the Facilities Committee on the 17th.
So this is March.
Wednesday of next week.
Okay, and I submitted it in January.
Well, Anton submitted his in September. Jason in November.
Okay,
We got eight applications in the queue right now.
that's useful information.
Okay. All right. Let's go ahead on page 8. We're on membership. You've got the attendance review. Speaks for itself. Some of us have been here, some of us have not. Okay. Now if we can go ahead and go to page 72, which is the membership roster. Okay.
Hey, Don, I'm sorry. Yeah, I meant to get a hold of you last month about this. On the top, you still have Cameron Moore as the secretary on this particular form. So
I will correct that. Thank you for. Oops. Not the first or the last.
sorry.
I appreciate you letting me know. That's easy for me to fix. All right. In the agenda packet for the January meeting, I took the liberty of adjusting the start dates for the terms for most of the CBOC based on a resolution passed on April 8th of last year, which in my interpretation, and well as others, created a new CBOC for Measure R. This resolution went so far as to appoint most of the current CBOC members to the new CBOC. One of the benefits of this is that with the creation of a new CBOC, there are legal opinions that the clock starts fresh for the new CBOC members. This would eliminate the problem we have before us where longstanding CBOC members, some of which bring a great institutional historical knowledge to the table, would still be allowed to serve their community. The pushback from senior staff and some members of the board was phenomenal on that roster. I was advised of the great and severe damage caused by that roster. Between the district and the board, both current and previous, when CBOC applications were submitted to them for review and action, no review and no action was taken or even agendized. Some of those applications go back to the beginning of September. We now have 8 applications before the board. I do not yet know whether they've been placed on the agenda for the next Facilities Committee meeting or not. That meeting was scheduled for this coming Friday afternoon and evening, but I was informed last Friday by Ms. Romo that the date may be pushed back to the following week or later. We now know it's been Wednesday of next week. I'm not going to suggest that I've been hounding staff on a daily basis to try to resolve this issue of the new CBOC, but I brought it up frequently enough that it became clear from the pushback that this was not something staff wanted to be bothered with at this time. I was reminded that everyone's plate is full right now, and this is not as high a priority for them as it might be for us. Let's not forget that in the past 8 weeks, the board has held 13 meetings with 3 more scheduled for next week. They also now have 5 subcommittees that meet frequently. It's become a full-time job just to stay on top of the district. It's even more of a full-time job for the board members. Heaven help anyone who also stays on top of their city council meetings and their subcommittees, any neighborhood council meetings, and then there's always day jobs for those lucky enough to have a paying job. It is my intention to submit a draft resolution to the board before next week with a hope that they will take up this issue and take the appropriate action before the damage is irreparable. But as it stands right now, you can see that we only have 4 members on the CBOC. And very shortly, people like myself will be termed out as well. I've got 2 months left. We'll be down to 3. By then, perhaps some of these new people will be, their action will have been taken on them, so we'll at least have the number of people brought back up. Okay. Any comments or questions on the roster?
Don?
Lupe first, and then Lorraine.
There you go.
So my term ends in August, so does that mean I should put in my application now? Just so it gets reviewed on time?
You're a funny lady.
I mean, I'm wondering, should I wait, it's a serious question, should I wait till the last minute, or should I just like start preparing?
I mean, I know that you're serious and that it's funny to listen to, but this may be just a little bit early, but it would probably behoove you in another month or 2 to submit an application.
Okay, so I'll put that on my calendar.
Yeah, just to be sure. Lorraine.
Yes, I just wanted to point out that to the new members, the 5 positions that are mandated by Proposition 39 are 1 through 5. They're in, it's right before the pink band. And although 3 of the 5 are vacant now, if the board approves the applications, those 3 will be filled. So it's just a matter of whether the applications are approved or not. So if they are approved, we will not have problem with not having the required mandated positions covered.
Lupe, your hand is still up. Did you have more to speak?
Oh, I forgot to put it down.
Okay, just want to be sure. All right, anything else?
Don, I just think it's fair to say, though, that there's only been 1 facility committee meeting since the board was elected in December. And prior to December, there weren't any meetings held since I believe the last meeting was held in October. And I'd have to go back and check, but I think it was October. And Mr. Panis was the only member there for several of those meetings. So in fairness, there just haven't been meetings in order for those to go to the facilities group before coming to the full board.
No, you're valid point on that, Louis. And but when you have, at the very least, when you have start stacking up applications in the queue, when you've got somebody that's telling them all the time that we are going to be in non-compliance if we don't act pretty soon, then action needs to be taken to schedule a meeting. It needs to be prioritized for them. Okay, John, your hand was up.
So next meeting of the facilities committee is now the 17th. I'm just kind of curious, it's obvious that it's non-compliance with Proposition 39. Have they had any kind of interview process? I know, we had about a half an hour discussion. I think Mr. Panis was on the when I was interviewed. That has any movement gone on that? Have they, it seemed to me that if nothing else, those 3 positions, that they get people identified and interview them before that meeting.
So the interviews will take place at the meeting. So this is typically the way the facilities committee has operated. Is the applications go forward, those applicants are invited to the meeting, and then the facilities committee members will conduct that interview process.
In the past, there were 4 set questions that the facilities committee asked the applicants, on the record. Okay. Lorraine.
Yes, Don, I noticed that you had mentioned that you are being, your timed out is on, in 2 months, a little over 2 months. Are you going to put another application in?
Now, this
Or-
is the terming out that mandated by the state. My 3 terms are up.
Okay.
Now,
So-
we've had legal opinions to say that that all you have to do is wait a reasonable amount of time, to sit out a reasonable amount of time before you can reapply fresh again. But as he pointed out, our attorney, I should say, what constitutes a reasonable amount of time? And that would fall in the hands of the board. Okay.
Mhm.
And whether they
Well-
decided a reasonable amount of time is 1 day or 10 years, we don't know,
Mhm.
because it hasn't come up to them.
Well, also you had mentioned about the Proposition R and so I've doing some work for the state CABOC and on membership drives, and several committees will have a separate CBOC per proposition. So like Anton's application is for Proposition R. Is it possible for you to put in an application under Proposition R at this time?
We don't know.
Oh, okay. And that's something the committee should think about, because you are a very active president. So we'd have to consider an alternative if you are timed out. So it's something to think about.
Yes, it is. Okay. We're going to item O, new member applications. And I've put, out of the 8 applications that we have in the queue, I've put the other ones in the agenda packets in the past. I thought that I put Anton Younghairs in there, but before, but at this time I added it as well. Lorraine is reapplying for an extension, but we have a brand new applicant, Joseph Camacho, who is with us here today, and we're going to welcome him here, and give him an opportunity just to say hello to us and tell us why the world is going to be a better place with him being a part of our CBOC. Joseph, you want to chime in? Are you still here, Joseph? Sorry, I can't see you. Everybody here. Oh, it looks like he has left us. That's too bad, because I was saying nice things about him. All right. And I'm going to go ahead and go on to item P, the chairperson's report. Okay. There are quite a few items listed on here. And there are a lot of items listed under this header this month. So some are routine while others are not. I hope you'll bear with me as I go through some of the details associated with them, so they might make more sense and their importance might be more obvious. The new board has eliminated the standing reports that the various committees were allowed to make once each month. There were nearly 24 committees, and they were each given 5 minutes to report. On the surface, these reports were given to the board, but they were also given to the public. We can call and email the board, but we have no access to the public. So this was a pathway to that line of communication. Board President Phillips justified his elimination of the standing reports by explaining that this was one of the main reasons why the board meetings were so long over the budgeted amount of time. He explained that if each committee gave a report, that would be nearly 2 hours just for standing reports. In reality, though, at most meetings, there might be 2 to 3 standing reports. I don't recall in the past 5 years hearing more than 4. And even on those nights where there were no standing reports, the meetings still seemed to go excessively long. As he replaced the standing reports with reports from each of the 5 committees and the 2 student trustees. So that's as much as 35 minutes of new standing reports at each meeting. Trustee Phillips told me that in lieu of reporting at a board meeting, I can report to the facilities committee, and they would then report to the full board and the public. At the last facilities meeting, Lorraine, Sally, and I all reported, but when he spoke about the CBOC at the board meeting, nothing was mentioned about what any of us said. He did, however, report that he was working with senior staff to decide what the CBOC would look like in the future and how they will be allowed to operate. Trustee Phillips also told me that I could use my time under public forum at the beginning of the meeting to report on the CBOC. My understanding of the board policy gives each public speaker 3 minutes with a maximum of 20 minutes per agenda item for all public speakers. At the beginning of each meeting, though, he announces that the public will only be allowed 90 seconds. If I take advantage of public forum, it means that in my very limited amount of time, I'll have to decide between CBOC stuff and any of the numerous other items I may want to speak on. Perhaps you might understand why a common complaint I've been making is that this board seems to want to silence the public. Speaking of complaints, at just about every turn, I'm roundly criticized. When I complain about the lack of opportunities to speak to the board and the public, I'm criticized. When I complain about how the board seems to choose which board policies to follow and which to ignore, I'm criticized. When I complain about the scheduling of the meetings at times when it's less likely that the public can attend and participate, I also get criticized. Maybe I'm deluding myself, but I just don't think it should be this hard to give back to my community. Maybe my thinking is screwy, but I believe that when you schedule meetings like the facilities committee that judges what the full board and the public can be told about the bond program, there are guidelines that need to be followed. For instance, you don't schedule meetings to go head to head against the Super Bowl. You don't schedule meetings for Sunday morning when a lot of people go to church. And there's something special about a Friday night where people working people, when they're not stuck in the Friday night commute, want to spend some time with their families. Maybe go to dinner, take in a movie, or maybe just to kick back. So I complain about these late Friday afternoon and early evening facilities meetings. We even have one of those committee meetings, the academic committee, scheduled to go head to head against the CBOC meeting. So board members, the public, and even some of us have to decide which important meeting they have to blow off. At the last facilities meeting, the board members had a meeting with senior staff about what staff felt needed to be done with the CBOC. At no time did they turn to members of the CBOC to get our thoughts on any of this. Some of what was presented talked without providing examples of the many problems that staff has with the CBOC, including how we're directing them on what to do. Dr. Wold told the committee, this current configuration, the district does not create the agenda. The district does not have the same level of authority that it should, and there have been conflicts that have come up where there's been a belief that district staff can be directed by members that are not part of the Board of Education. Since I've been on it's been the CBOC chair these past 3 years, there have never been a time when staff asked to include something on the agenda that I pushed back on. With me putting together the agenda packet, I'm saving the district maybe more than 250 man hours each year. And even if I have to say it myself, I think the agenda packets are far better than what we were getting from the district before. I'm unclear exactly what authority the district is supposed to have over the bond program. I surely hope that no one on the board or staff believes that we should just shut up, sit down, and do what they tell us to do. That's not what the people intended when they passed Proposition 39. At least I don't think the people believe that. I invite you all to please read the professionally prepared transcripts of the facilities committee meeting and watch the 14-minute video that were included in the agenda packet. If you do and you walk away with a warm and fuzzy feeling about well-loved, respected, and wanted the CBOC is, then I'm going to lose sleep worrying about you. Since we last met, I've sent 2 letters to the board asking them to schedule a joint meeting with the CBOC, but I've been met with silence on this. My correspondence is to the full board, and I've rarely received even acknowledgements. I would love to discuss my concerns with members of the board, but they seem to be in their own meetings, preparing for them or recovering from them. If you read those letters, I try to explain the advantage of having open discussions at the joint meetings instead of being allowed but 90 seconds to talk at the board. I also mentioned that its board policy is to host joint meetings in the first and third quarters of the year. I've also attached copies of the letters to the board and the state board with regards to how the district erroneously referenced the CBOC in their petition for a bond capacity waiver. And that is my report for this month. Questions or comments? I'm seeing Lorraine's hand up.
I was at the facilities meeting, and one of the things that surprised me was that on the agenda, it listed CBOC, but nothing else. So I was wondering if maybe there could be a little more explanation if we're put on the meeting, whether you're going to talk about the policy or talk about the whatever, so we have an idea of what's going to be discussed. Another thing I was wondering, Louis, on other meetings, like the board meeting, I requested and I get the agenda just emailed to me. Could you get someone on the staff to email the facilities agendas out to the CBOC members? You may get more people coming to your meeting that way.
There is a list of folks that we typically CC on that on the facilities committee, and we could try to add you to that as well. But to
Great.
your point, as far as clarification on the agenda, we're working towards that with our next meeting to make sure that the items that are listed on the agenda are very clear so the public knows exactly what we're speaking to.
Right. Now, could you add all the CBOC members to that list for getting the agenda?
I'll certainly bring it up to the staff and see what we can do.
Yeah, my
Great.
recommendation would be for anyone who wants to be noticed when the packet is made available. Ms. Humes, you just made that request, so we'll add you to the list.
Mhm.
But I think that's something that people should ask for individually. And so for anyone who wants to be noticed when the committee is posted to the board, absolutely, we'll provide that notification. It's part of the Brown Act. But I would just say that, if people are looking for that, just to let us know, they can absolutely send an email and we'd be happy to make sure that they're noticed.
Right. And presently you can find the agendas on your website. And you have a new item there where you're taping your meetings, right, Melissa?
Yes, so the district has a YouTube channel where you can find a number of different board committees if you want to watch the videos. There's also a committees page on our district website, which has information for all of the different board committees, of which there are 5. And so you can get information about the next meeting, how to join the meeting. And then you can also watch the meetings on the district YouTube channel.
That's one of the benefits of Zoom. You're able to do that.
Yeah.
The big benefit of the YouTube channel is you could download the video and archive it, and then you can trim out the sections. I mean, I may not want the whole 3-hour facilities meeting last time. I only took out the 14 minutes about the CBOC. You can't do that when you're replaying a Zoom meeting. I mean, if you're lucky enough like me, I've got the recording of the Zoom meeting, but with YouTube, it's just easier to do. And I know this isn't something that the facilities can do, but I know with the city of Richmond, on their homepage, there's a place where members of the public can sign up to automatically get notifications about every committee that they're interested in. So when they have a meeting and there's an agenda packet, it just automatically goes to them. That'd be something that the district might want to look into, instead of having a sign up list with Melissa jotting down Lorraine's name. Just have something on the website where I can just click it off and it's just automatically generated. I know that for the board meetings, working through Debbie Haney, I'm being sent the notifications, and actually I think either the budget or the academic committee, I get notifications, but that's only 1 out of the 5 that I get notifications on. Lorraine, I did mention in my comments to the facilities committee that we'd only gotten the agenda items 5.5 hours before the meeting. And I did comment that there just wasn't anything there. So how do you prepare for your comments on that when you have no idea what they're going to be discussing? It's difficult, let alone lobby them. So.
Well, at that meeting, it seems like the committee was in transition because Mr. Phillips was there. The new board members were there, and they were expressing preferences, ways they'd like things to be looked at. So they are in transition, as Louis said. So hopefully it'll get more clear as we go along.
We'll get it smoothed out.
Yeah.
I'm sure we will. Anything else on this? And go to item on page 10 of our agenda, go to item Q, the annual report. I'll turn things over to Lorraine.
Yes. All right. Well, last month, we gave out assignments for the annual report, and I just want to be known that even if the committee does not appoint you at this point, please start working on your assignments. Don't hold off. The next big date is on April 23rd. That's when the report has to be completed. You've got your assignments. Last time we met, Don sent out the copy of the 2019 annual report to everyone. And since then, I had sent out the permission to edit that report. And I've talked to some of the members that have given assignments, and we'll be talking to more. But you've had a chance to read the report, so please get busy at doing your area. If you're not sure, contact me and we'll explain it. I'll send out another letter to everyone. Another thing is that the executive summary is put together after the chapters are written. So that's another reason to get working on your chapters, because as soon as you're done, send me an email and we'll start on the executive summary for that. Let's see what else. I think that's about it. Are there any questions?
Sally?
Lorraine, this has to do with, this goes back to all these new people coming in, including myself. And so as we're sitting here, I have no access to any, Google Doc or anything that we were using in the past for drafting that first draft. And
Oh,
we're sitting here at March 8th, and you're saying that the drop dead dates for version 1 is April 23rd, if I remember correctly, if that's what you said.
Yes, I sent out access to the link. And are you saying that you tried to get access and it didn't work?
Wow. Well, I'm not going to confirm that. Having
We'll try it again to make sure.
maybe you sent it to me and I just overlooked it, but I just wasn't aware of any. But I'll go check it again, and then offline I'll let you know. But then the other thing to question is these new people, 8 of them in the queue, including people like Anton. Are they on the list of, people that you're going to include in the report?
Well, I spoke to Don about that, can we have people that haven't been approved yet to be on the committee? And he didn't think that was any problem, because it is a private report. We can,
that makes sense.
Problem with it.
Yeah, that does make a lot of sense, actually.
Yeah.
Okay.
My feeling has always been that whether a person is on the committee or not on the committee, if they've got good and useful information, then you open your arms and say, come on in. I would much rather be more inclusive than exclusive. It serves no purpose, for me at least, to push people out, say, oh, your membership's over with, you don't exist anymore. Because that it just isn't so.
Right.
I mean, if
thing
we ever have a vote again on anything, then obviously it's only official CBOC members that can vote. But we don't have those very often.
Yeah. Another thing is that at the last meeting, I had mentioned that we do have all the past agendas from 2020 up on our website now. So just go to the website and go down to the archived agendas, and you can get a lot of material out of those.
Okay. And just a reminder for everybody, since I put together the agenda packets, I've got all the individual items. I mean, you can download the individual item off of Google Drive. I mean, you may not want the entire agenda, but you may just want item number Q, and you can download that, or you just get a hold of me and I just send it to you.
Right.
Easy peasy.
Good.
Okay. Anything else? Going once? Nope, I'm not even gonna go twice. Thank you very much, Lorraine.
Sure.
All right. Item R is the calendar, standard. It's got the, our meetings and the meetings for the board as we know them. I don't know of any way to use my computer and write something in pencil. But it seems like the scheduled board meetings just keep adding more and more on there. So this was valid as of Friday morning. Okay, and I know we've added a few more meetings since then. Okay, and item S is our future agenda topics. I added the Brown Act training that Lorraine brought up last month, even though it was already on there from last year, just about from June. We'll see what we can do. Do we have any other future agenda items that somebody would like to suggest?
Have you worked anything out with Greg yet? He was going to do some training.
Not yet. And unfortunately, yeah, attending all these meetings for the school board has taken its toll on people like myself as well. There's just not much time left
Mhm.
in the day. I mean, I'm just, as an example, last Wednesday, they had 1 hour scheduled for their closed door session that stretched into 4 hours. And so that the scheduled school board meeting that was supposed to start at 6 o'clock didn't start till after 9 o'clock. And then it took the normal time after that. That's a long time to be sitting in front of the screen. It's just difficult to be able to take care of other business at the same time that we're involved with these. And again, the school board is one thing, then you've got city councils and they like to do those same things. We've got a special called meeting tomorrow night too. So no, bottom line is I have not been able to coordinate with Greg. I'll see what I can do.
Great.
Anything else anybody would like to add to the future agenda item log? If not, then at 3:29 p.m., we will be adjourned. Our next scheduled CBOC meeting will be on April 12th of 2021. I hope we don't have any complaints that we're not stretching this into 5 o'clock like our normal meetings. Give me a chance to go to the hardware store and get some stuff I need before my neighborhood council meeting tonight. Thank you all for attending.
Thank you, Don.
Thank you.
Later tonight, I'll have the video posted. Okay.
All right, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Stay safe.
Right now.